Hello and welcome to More Than a Game, a podcast about the A-League, Premier League and more. My name's Tommy C, and today I'm joined by none other than, I'm not sure whether to call him Soccer Twitter royalty or not, but look, very, very prominent member of Soccer Twitter family or community, whatever you want to call it, Mikey Moosfoot. Welcome, mate.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Welcome, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on because I know that you and I we've actually almost met a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember this? Do you want to tell the story?
From what I remember, I was at Amy Park watching a lovely game of football. Went for a halftime snack, and was it Amy Park was serving salmon and chips, I believe. Is that right?
It was. And I remember we both looked at each other and we were both like, that's pretty weird. And then, sorry, mate, keep going. You were telling the story.
Feel free to jump in. But I think I put it up on Twitter and you responded to it. And that's how we knew we actually met in real life, which is a bit of a weird thing.
I know, it was really a really strange moment where sort of real life and soccer Twitter intertwined, but we didn't even realize it at the time. So there you have it. But look, mate, I know we still haven't really met each other, considering I'm on the other side of the world right now, and even though we do live normally in the same city together, but one day our paths shall cross again, and we will know that our paths have crossed. All right, mate. Look, we got a couple of regular questions that we normally ask guests on their first time on the pod. So, look, I am going to have to step through some formalities with you. So, look, mate, how did you get into football, and who do you support?
Well, I'm not from a footballing family. My immediate family. So I was a bit of a late comer to football. Probably around the South African World Cup is when I kind of jumped on the bandwagon a bit, the World Cup fever, and then I'm a bit younger too, so in high school, a lot of my friends were into football, and that's kind of how I got integrated into the sport, is through, I guess, trying to fit in, make some friends, and I kind of fell in love with the game from there.
Yeah, cool. Who do you support now?
Oh, the mighty Melbourne City.
And how did you come to start following them?
Oh, well, in high school, I was friends with some kids, and their parents were inaugural members, and it was just happenstance, I guess. I mean, I guess if you didn't have any affinity either way, most people would have gone the Victory way. But I had friends that dragged me down the Hart way, kicking and screaming, but I guess I'm all the better for it.
And they were Melbourne Heart at the time, not City?
Yeah, they were Melbourne Heart, yeah.
So how did you feel personally, I guess, at the time when City took over? Were you optimistic, or were you a little bit disappointed, or a mixture?
Well, I guess I was young enough where it was an exciting prospect. Like I guess when you look back in hindsight, you can go, that was a bit dodgy. But at the time, I was like, wow, look, David Villa's coming. We're just going to buy Ronaldo. We're going to buy Messi. We're going to win the league every year. It's going to be great. The naivety at the time, but
David Silva is going to come and win City the league rather than just coming for
free flowing talent.
Instead, we had I think he probably signed more T-shirts than played minutes, I reckon, in Melbourne. So it was a bit disappointing, but I guess these things happen sometimes.
Nice photo shoot.
Yeah, mate.
Took the players out to lunch.
You did mention that you're Melbourne Heart through and through, as opposed to I guess City through and through. Is Mifsud actually your surname? No.
I've adopted the star striker with his one famous goal at Sydney away.
There is plenty of Maltese people or people with Maltese background in Melbourne. So it wasn't until quite a ways after that I first crossed paths with you that it clicked that your surname wasn't actually Mifsud.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of an obscure joke putting our best worst signing of all time. But I've rolled with it.
I like it because it's you doubling down on the fact that you're like OG soccer Twitter.
More or less. I mean, you said Heart through and through, but I mean, I was probably too young to appreciate Heart at the time, really. It's definitely more City for me. Like I wasn't even 18 during Heart games, so like I've really been integrated into City more than Heart, I guess, but I still romanticise it.
Well, I guess the football club, whatever you want to call them, City or Heart, they are reaching a point where they're going to almost have been City for longer than they ever were Heart. So,
I think that's already happened.
I think it happens this year, doesn't it? Or is it last year? I don't know. But we're approaching that point, or we've just ticked over that point. So, look, mate. One final question though, and this isn't one that we normally would throw out, but I know that you go to Amy Park regularly. So, look, what's your favourite takeaway food item at Amy Park?
I feel you know this. The answer to this question. It'd have to be the famous chicken and chips from Amy Park. I mean, I'd recommend it, but you might have to take out a mortgage first.
Yeah, you're right. It's not cheap. No. I've got to say that I'm a big fan of the burger and the chicken burger with like the hash chips. The hash chips, I reckon, are amazing.
Yeah, those are weird ones. They popped up one year, and I wasn't sure what they were doing. I thought they were messing with something that shouldn't be touched, but they've done well there.
What I want to know is, how do they make those hash chips? Like, is like there some sort of special machine of how they do it, or I don't know. Every time I go there, I have the same thought of, fuck, how do they make these incredible pieces of potato?
Probably a trade secret, or just frozen and brought into the Amy Park. I'm not sure. There's probably handcrafted, I'd imagine. I'd like to imagine.
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, I reckon. Alrighty, mate. Look, without any further ado, though, now that you've been ordained into the order of MTAG guests, we'll kick off into the regular stuff, though, shall we? And look, since you're the guest, I'll let you go first. What's your moment of the week this week?
I'd have to say my moment of the week was in the international football, the Scotland game. John McGinn scored an amazing overhead kick. And it's just, I mean, a 2-2 draw is not amazing. I don't think it's what Scotland wanted. But that goal, that's a good goal.
Mate, let's face it, no one gives a fuck about the result when John McGinn is scoring goals like that, I reckon. You're not Scottish, eh?
Well, yeah, I've got Scottish. I got Scottish background, yeah.
Oh, well, I apologise. You maybe did care about the result then. I apologise then. But look, we have said on this podcast before that John McGinn scores 1 to 2 absolute worldies every year, either like Tony Yeboah-esque goals where they just absolutely crash into the crossbar and then down into the ground and then into the roof of the net again. And although this was definitely maybe not one of John McGinn's best, it still was a cracking goal. And I know everyone appreciates a bicycle kick. What's your favourite kind of bicycle kick, though? Because there's the ones like this where it comes directly from behind him and he just sort of helps it on its way in the direction that it's going.
Yeah,
or there's the ones that come in from across. They're my personal favourite because you think, bloody hell, how's he done that? How's he coordinated that?
Which ones are you thinking of? Are you thinking like a Rooney or a Cahill or?
Yeah, the Rooney one, even though there was plenty of shin in that Rooney one, that's definitely one of my favourites. So I think, was it Bale or Ronaldo? I think that did one similar a couple of years ago, and that is up there.
Champions League against Juve, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, they're my favourites, and that's the problem with bicycle kicks. After a while, is you see some incredible ones like that, and then it makes John McGinn's one just look like just an average bicycle kick, which. All right. For me this week, look, plenty of great stuff happened this week in football. There was A-League watchers will have seen the Tomo Hamed goal against Victory, including that just that beautiful flowing counter-attacking move, including Piscopo's just beautiful touch. That was an early candidate, but look, it really is hard to go past Riley Dobson's farewell goal and proposal all in one game, as well for Melbourne City too, in the W League this week. Pretty amazing story. Obviously sad that she needs to quit football in order to take care of her partner. Shame that W League players aren't paid well enough to be able to do that, but that's maybe a conversation for another day. But look, obviously that was a moment that I think it ended up going viral all around the world. I did see a couple of UK based pages that retweeted it and stuff. Which look, it's great when good stuff makes its way from Australia and gets picked up around the world, because there's some fantastic stories in the W League that deserve to get told.
Yeah, I was actually at that game, and I think it took everyone by surprise. Maybe apart from the squad, but it was going into end of season presentations, and I looked down at my phone for 1 second, and I looked back up. Everyone's screaming. It was a fantastic moment. It kind of made a bad season seem like a trophy lift at the end of the season, which is a bit of a good one.
Good to hold up the ring like that, the W League ring.
Exactly right.
That would have been like the perfect marriage proposal if someone from like the winning A League, I can't remember if it's the premiers or the premiers or the champions. I can't remember who gets the toilet seat, but if you use that as a giant engagement ring, that's what I want to see. That's what I want to see, is someone like present that and like put it on like their fiance's arm or something and pretend like it's a giant engagement ring.
In the NBA, you get championship medals. Why don't they make miniature championship rings of the replicas of the championship? That'd be nice.
Well, they do that in the NFL. They get them like really blingy, sort of garish Super Bowl rings, which I mean they're pretty gross, to be perfectly honest. But like
tacky,
replicating the toilet seat into nice little sort of rings for the champions. Like,
let's make toilet seats. Let's do
that. Just golden toilet seats and mate, you just non-stop with the great marketing ideas. We need to get you down to APL headquarters as soon as possible.
I'm there.
All right. Own goal. What didn't you like this week, mate? What stood out to you?
Did you watch the Portugal game over the break?
I didn't watch it, but I read about this. Walk me through it, mate.
Well, it was 2-2 between Portugal and Serbia, and in stoppage time, Ronaldo scored the winner. It was cleared off the line, behind the line, and for whatever reason, there's no VAR, there's no goal line technology. The referee just, surprise to me too. Well, I imagine there's not, because there's no way that goal doesn't stand. It's past the line, it's cleared away. But when that's not awarded, Ronaldo, he storms over to the linesman, gets a yellow card, and then as soon as the whistle goes, he's down the tunnel. He throws the armband down on the pitch.
So that's a bit of a no-no, isn't it?
I don't reckon your national team captain should be tossing the armband onto the pitch.
It's not far off of. Do you remember when Xhaka I think he got sent off and he took his jersey off and just threw it on the ground?
Yeah.
And same sort of energy, right?
Same energy. I mean, I think that's a bit worse, but it's not what you want to see from your nation's leader.
No, and I guess like all of the Portuguese like fans and so forth, they'd be looking to Ronaldo to score them all the goals. So yeah, look, obviously he's a passionate man. We'd love to see that in football, but it'd be interesting to see how that plays out in Portugal's next match, to see if they found the armband and give it to Ronaldo again.
I think they might.
Fair enough. Anything else on that, mate?
No, that's all on the Ronaldo.
Okay. All right. For me, this week, my own goal was the James Rodriguez and his, I guess, transition rumors that he was transitioning to be a woman, and that was why he'd been out injured. This was really bizarre, and I don't know where this came from, but it seemed to be like one of those just fake news things that crops up on social media or WhatsApp every now and again, and people share it. I don't know. I think it's partially out of it's just so incredulous that people share it out of just like, where's this come from? My mind is absolutely blown. But yeah, like just where that came from, I don't know. Don't even really know how to expand upon it, other than I'm almost certain that everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. And it was just bizarre. I mean, If it turns out to be true, obviously that's pretty wild in itself, and hopefully James or whatever he transitions to be, that he finds happiness. But if it doesn't turn out to be true, then obviously making light of that is also pretty wild as well. So look, just wild, and we're not really sure how it's all going to play out yet. The wildest thing I think could be that it turns out to be true. So yeah. We'll see where that goes in the next week or so. I for one, I guess, selfishly hope that he makes a return, because I love watching James play. I think he's one of my all-time favorite players, and so it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, he's great, but it's just one of these things that it sounds so wild. I think that's how it gets passed around. Like it reminds me of at the start of COVID, that WhatsApp rumor that went around about them baking a big lasagna at Wembley. Do you remember that one?
No.
That they were using the underground heating to make a giant lasagna to feed London.
Well, I guess it's a bit like sort of QAnon as well, right? Like, some of the rumors that like there's all of these tunnels and in Melbourne, and that they're. I promise that this won't turn into a QAnon pod. But the idea that there's like an underground labyrinth of tunnels underneath Melbourne, and they used COVID as a way to get rid of all of these children from Parliament House in the CBD, and I don't know, get them to where? I don't know. That wasn't part of the rumor, but man, it just blew my mind. Like, maybe we need to turn this into like a conspiracy theory pod where we just like pull them apart.
Will love it. Keep saying those buzzwords. You'll get the algorithm will love it.
Oh shit! All right. Well, look, we'll keep moving on though. Plenty of listener questions as well, and I guess a mixture of some listener questions and just some broader news items. Throughout the week, we had two national teams as part of the Euro correction, their World Cup qualifiers, doing some protests for the World Cup, trying to generate, I guess, some awareness for Qatari workers. And I guess Australians have a bit of a bittersweet relationship with the Qatar World Cup after, I guess, the bidding fiasco, and I guess us investing a whole bunch of time, energy, and I guess emotional energy into it as well. So do you think that we're going to be seeing more protests against the Qatar World Cup in the coming months?
I think we are, but I'm not sure if that means there'll be a boycott of the World Cup. I think this is done with the hope that it results in some change in Qatar. That is kind of drawing a line in the sand, but it might be a bit late for this. Like, I feel there should have been a more united message about 10 years ago.
You're right. And I mean, it is a little bit late. I think a lot of people have been making noise about this, or been saying, hey, like there's some dodgy shit that goes on in Qatar. Like, you guys know this, right? And then there was obviously the weather issue as well in Qatar in terms of just hosting a sporting tournament in the hottest part of the year where temperatures routinely get over 40 degrees. And also, I guess also the regime's stance on sort of homosexuality and other human rights and things like that as well. So, look, do you think that so Norway and Germany, they were the two teams that were involved in those sort of pre-match protests, but do you think either of those two nations, given that they're sort of the first two to do sort of some sort of public protest, do you think either of them are a realistic chance to actually to boycott the tournament should they actually qualify?
I don't think they will unless there's a wider movement. If all the big nations, I say big nations, if all the successful football World Cup nations say had a breakaway rebel tournament, that might be an option. But it's kind of, if everyone doesn't do it, nobody will do it because it's so lucrative. It comes around once every 4 years. Nobody really wants to give that up.
It's a good point. Like, I mean, out of those two nations, I think I'm not somewhat surprised that one of the Scandinavian teams has done a protest, but I'm a little bit surprised that a big nation such as Germany that they've protested. But out of the two, you would have to say Norway is far more likely, I think, to do a boycott than Germany are, because, I mean, let's face it, Germany, I think, would still rate their chances of actually winning the thing, and Norway, I guess, have got more chance of actually. Well, arguably, it says more if you don't if you actually are a chance of winning it and you still withdraw, whereas Norway, I guess, have got less to lose, and I guess in my mind are more likely to boycott it.
I suppose, but they're also less likely to qualify. So if they do qualify, it's probably arguably a bigger sacrifice if they do end up pulling out of the World Cup, because they don't come around too often. Yeah,
and I guess that's the thing, right? Like with Australia, right? Like obviously Tim Cahill, he's obviously one of the ambassadors for the tournament.
Yeah.
But is do you think like Australia, for example, should boycott it? I mean, I don't particularly know a hell of a lot about your politics, but just going to throw it out to you, mate.
Look, I don't know. I don't know if Australia has the kind of political power in the AFC to be able to make such a stance, because we're already on kind of eggshells with the AFC as far as our place in Asia. So I don't know if they'd want to stir up the pot, but I think if they're, there's been predictions about how many workers may have died and the conditions they're living under, but I feel they'll have to be more revealed before Australia made any actual real action.
Fair enough, mate. I think there was a very good flat bat that you gave that then. I respect that. Before we move on, I do want to throw out, I guess, one of the other sides of the coin to this whole topic. Matt Olsen pointed out that regimes since the 1930s have used the World Cup for political purposes, such as Argentina 78, who I actually looked it up. There was the military coup 2 years prior to that. And then there was also, obviously, lots of football fans are aware of, I guess, the we'll call it economic wastage of pouring money into building brand new stadiums in Brazil in 2014 on the back of all of their economic problems as well. And I guess to some degree it would have been the same in South Africa too. So it's not without.
Are you suggesting FIFA is not a non-profit organisation for the good?
I don't have the diplomatic skills of your flat bat, mate, so I'm just going to ignore the question. But I guess it's sort of similar to the and I guess let's not look past the Russia World Cup as well. Obviously, it was a success on the pitch, but it also can be an opportunity for states to, I guess, improve their standing on the international stage as well. But mate, onto some more football related matters though. In the last couple of weeks, we've seen one day he's returned to Adelaide this week. We've also had Stephen Taylor. He's returned to Wellington, and he played today for Wellington. Did well, lasted all of 12 minutes. So I'm guessing he was probably a little bit underdone. But Jason Guerrier also returned to Perth, back to the A-League after a few years in the J-League. And Bobo has been in good form for Sydney. Mitch Duke has also returned from the Middle East as well. Look, there's a couple of big names, 5 big names that have returned from the A-League, and with the Indian Super League also wrapping up recently as well, there's a chance that we could actually see more Australians or foreigners coming to the A-League in the next couple of weeks. Who do you think out of those 5 is likely to be the best mid-season signing? And is there anyone else that you're tracking that could be coming back to the A-League?
I don't mean to give another flat back, but I'd probably Duke and Taylor returning, because they were so influential for their teams last season. I don't reckon you could probably sign someone better than your captain. Even though Duke's not been given the armband back, I feel they're probably invaluable signings.
I think the most annoying thing about Mitch Duke signing for the Wanderers is that they've given him number 12, which for me, that's always a goalkeeper's number, or like your second string left back's number or something like that. I'm really triggered by the fact that they've given like one of their all-time greats at the Wanderers the number 12 jersey. I'm so fucking triggered by it.
Yeah, but at the same time, what can you do? You can't strip a number off somebody else.
Well, yeah, I think who is it? The big pommy guy, Cox, I think it is. I think he's wearing number 9 at the moment, isn't he?
You could be right. I wouldn't have any idea.
Don't have intimate knowledge of all of the shirt numbers for the Wanderers, mate.
I can't say I do. Sorry to the Westies out there.
All good, but yeah, mate, not a bad shout. That Mitch Duke, I think, will be one of the best mid-season signings. Stephen Taylor obviously is a huge return as well for Wellington, but with him being injured today. Not sure how long he's going to be out for. Obviously, that could be a bit of a false dawn for Wellington.
Yeah.
Couple other questions though. John Proctor on Twitter asks, I'll throw this one straight to you as well, mate. Which
Okay.
A-League team do you think is going to be the first to do an overseas tour to the US? John, I'm pretty sure is an American, so
yeah, okay. I doubt any team has any direct plans anytime soon. The only team I could probably see doing something like this would be Melbourne City because of the New York connection. But even then, I don't know who's that interested either way. I don't know anyone who gives a toss about New York, and I doubt anyone in New York gives a toss about Melbourne, really. So I don't see any team particularly, unless there's a very lucrative tournament anyone's invited to.
What I really want to see, I guess, is like City Football Group have like a high school reunion type setup where they invite like all of the different teams from all over the world to like one place, and they all like, I don't know, maybe they get on the lash together, or maybe they play like a testimonial type game together or something like that. I think that could be fun. But
I thought you meant a knockout comp, and I wonder who's going to win that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, probably everyone is just scrapping for a chance to play Manchester City in the final, but that actually would be pretty interesting to see who would be the best out of all of the other teams. Probably Granada, who I think they're a City football team, aren't they? Granada in Spain.
Yeah.
But then after that, it would be really interesting to see how was it Mumbai FC and who's the other one? New York City. It'd be interesting to see how they match up against Melbourne City, especially noting that Melbourne City are looking pretty good at the moment. But more on that in a little bit. A few more questions though before we get into the A-League. Question for Mikey specifically, so I'm not even going to touch this one, from Greg Arms on Twitter. Do the APL stick with winter, or do they revert to a summer competition?
Like James Johnson, he put it out there, said, we want to align the calendars, we want to move to winter. But I'm not entirely sure why he did that, because I don't think it's really our call to make. Like, we're kind of at the behest of whatever offers come in, unfortunately. So if the reports are true in Stan Sport, they don't want Winter A-League, then we'll have to cop that. And we'll have to stay in summer.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good answer, mate. Next up is a question from Sharnen, who has been on the pod a couple of times recently as a guest. He makes a really good point about Xanthi, I think is how you say it, the Greek team
Xanthi.
The Popoviches went to. He notes that Paul Izzo has been dropped. None of the Popovic kids have featured. Matt Yerman, he's been in and out of the squad, and Josh Brilliante has been really the only success story since he's joined. Can you think of a worse or a bigger shit show in Australian football other than the nightmare that has turned into?
The Melbourne Victory. Other than that, not too many. I'm surprised to hear you say. I'm surprised to hear you say they're not utilising the Popovic boys. I thought they'd be starting every week.
Well, but now that Papa has gone, there's no reason to play them. Like the new, I don't even know who the new coach is. They probably don't have one. But the baby poppers, they are probably just sort of flailing in the wind there. They're probably thinking, Dad, like where have you gone? Like, come back for us.
Where are we going now?
There's a Disney story or something about like abandoned children or abandoned animals, isn't there? I don't know.
Oh, there's so many. That's most children's story tales from the old days, I believe.
Yeah, true. All right, and finally though, HSN of Survivor tipping fame, he asks, if Delbridge would start in the current City team, would Delbridge start in the current City team?
I don't know is my answer. I saw this one in advance, and I kind of thought about it, and I thought, but I kind of thought about it a way of like, if he stayed at Melbourne, he'd be in form like the rest of the team. He'd slot in. But I think he's only. I think I looked it up. He's only played 180 minutes in the past 6 games. That's been the whole K-League so far. He's only played 1 full match, so I don't think he would slot in right now if he came in. But yeah, love the Del Boy.
Yeah, I'm really not sure. He's definitely not taking Curtis Good's spot. And
No.
Pepe, the Portuguese boy, I'm pretty sure they're not taking his spot either because he comes with some pedigree as well. So, yeah, look, I think Del Boy might have to get used to playing first sub.
Plenty
if he was to come
there.
back.
Yeah.
Indeed. And finally from HSN, he wants to know why City always bottle it against Adelaide United.
That's a great question. And there's no great answer. It's always Adelaide or it's always Perth with Melbourne. One of those two. Yeah.
I'm going to force you into an answer here, and you need to find a reason, mate. Why is it always Adelaide?
The great city of Adelaide has great people that get behind their team because there's nothing else to do.
Oh, there we go. That old one resurfaces. All right. That's been look, almost half an hour. Well, you're more than half an hour of Q&A. So we'll get into some A-League now. So this week in A-League, we've got a couple of games from midweek that we're going to cover really quickly, and then obviously an almost full round of games as well, with the exception of Brisbane versus Western United, which was postponed a few days ago due to some, I wouldn't say just some wet weather, but pretty much the whole eastern seaboard of Australia just decided to be pretty much flooded, and so I don't think there was any real surprises that still we're feeling the hangover from the big wet last weekend. So first off, midweek we did have Wellington versus Manchester, fucking hell, against Melbourne Victory. It was MVC, and I'm thinking, what the hell does that stand for again?
Everyone's forgotten.
But look, I know. Look, another week and another shellacking for Melbourne Victory, this time from the Ulysses Davila-inspired Wollongong. This one was played at Wynn Stadium as well, same as today's match. Goals from Ball, Davila and Lewis, and the cherry on top, obviously, was the great goal that you mentioned in Moment of the Week, as finished by Hamed. Wellington were really good as Victory were bad. And they look really good every time they're wearing that the new red strip, the Wollongong red strip, with the exception of today. I know. I've got to be honest. I was really tempted to buy one, and I didn't, and now I'm regretting it.
It could honestly be one of the best we've ever seen. Like I was kind of unsure about the manufacturer when they came out with the home one, but that is great. I don't know what it is about it, but it looks fantastic.
Well, so you've seen the sort of, it looks like an oil blot. So apparently it's the topography of, I can't remember the name of the mountain outside of Mount Wellington. Anyway, but there's a mountain just outside of Mount Wellington, and it's the topography of that. And when I looked it up to have a look at the one for the Wollongong version, or the red version, I thought that they might have included like the topography of Wollongong, noting that you've got like the escarpment that runs just down sort of to the west of Wollongong. And I thought that would be sort of like maybe a cool way of doing that. But no, they've still just used the Wellington topography for the Wollongong one, which, yeah, okay, I get it. It's still meant to be a Wellington club, so they're not completely just ported over to Wollongong. But still, I thought, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. Sorry, man.
I didn't even know it was topography until about 20 seconds ago, but now I'm disappointed that they haven't.
I don't know. Like, I think they weren't really going to continue to stretch the idea from it being a New Zealand club playing out of Wollongong. The colour scheme was maybe enough, but still, a part of me just wants to see the Wolves crest on the chest, and them use the Wollongong topography as well. That would just make it.
On those wide shots, you could almost trick yourself into thinking you are watching the Wolves. Like, great. I reckon is a proof of concept for the Wolves. Like, absolutely, 100%. And nobody can argue against them now. Yeah,
absolutely, mate. Totally agree. And look, I guess if there's been in this game, we've seen particularly as well. I know the Mexican fans have been there for the last couple of weeks or last couple of months, making plenty of noise in their support for Davila. But today, excuse me, they were very much out in force, banging the drums and creating a fantastic atmosphere. And it sounded great on TV, so I can only imagine how good it would have been actually being at the ground. And it is it's a bit strange, I guess. Wynn Stadium, it's a bit like the Gossard Stadium in the sense that it's only on three sides. So I've never been to Gossard Stadium. Have you ever been?
Yeah, I have. It's fantastic.
But does it sort of have all of the noise escape one end?
I mean, maybe. I was there after I went up to watch Melbourne play in Western Sydney. So it was a Woo versus Central Coast I saw. So there weren't many people there to begin with. So I'm not sure about noise drowning out. I didn't hear much noise to begin with. But it is so picturesque. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and that is a good point. Is Wynn Stadium is such a beautiful stadium. Like, it literally on the other side of the hill, there's a bike path, and then you're on the sand, and it's City Beach there. Which, I spent 3 years living in Wollongong from 2006 to 2008, and that is just a beautiful, beautiful beach on the other side of the hill. So it would be a great, even if we do move to summer, it would be a great, summer day of being able to go to the beach, spend a little bit of time there, catch some waves, have some beers down on the beach, maybe, or go to the brewery afterwards, and then just go see some football afterwards.
But what an away day that would be! Fantastic.
Yeah, mate, 100%. But look, there was plenty of football played in this one as well, other than just the stadium. Tune in next week, though, for more stadium reviews.
Stadium and kit talk.
Yeah, exactly right. And topography chat. But look, there was a couple of really great goals in this. Obviously, you had Piscopo's Ronaldinho-esque touch, followed by some really nice lead-up play from Davila, and then Hamed putting the finishing touches. And that was the first goal, which we've talked about already.
Mm-hmm.
But then there were a couple of other good goals as well. With ball, although the ball one was a little bit scrappy, but Davila for Wellington's second was a real peach of a goal, another Wollongong counter attack. Clayton Lewis went really close just before that, hit the crossbar and bounced out, but then he ended up getting his reward to make it 4-0. And then even Elvis Kamsoba, even he managed to get on the action. But if there was a moment that really just summed up Melbourne victory season, it's one step forward, two steps back, and it was Kamsoba scoring to make it 4-1, and then he hurt himself. And I mean, Kamsoba, I think, has been a pretty disappointing player for a lot of victory fans and a lot of A-League fans, I guess, generally speaking as well, because he gets into a whole bunch of fantastic positions, but just often never does anything with it. So for him to finally score, and you think, oh, well, maybe this could be the turning point for him, for him to then get injured.
It's such a shame because he would have been geared up to go out to the nightclubs in Wollongong straight after the game. I'm not sure if he'd be able to.
Mate, I reckon back in the day he would have just absolutely cut a rug at the Glass House. I don't know if the Glass House is still like a great nightclub or what in Wollongong, but yeah. Really disappointing. It was a big return for Stephen Taylor, but as I mentioned early on, he's out injured now. So he's obviously a huge return back for the Knucks now. He provides leadership, provides quality, and a huge return, but an equally big and out now that he's out injured. So hopefully for the Phoenix, he makes a very quick return.
Good jet skiing out in Wollongong?
Well, maybe not out in the ocean, but maybe get down to Lake Illawarra, get out on the jet ski down there. Although might be too many sailboats.
Okay.
More transport chat there from Tommy C. You know, just love to talk about any form of transport, not just limited to public transport. So, there was an interesting stat doing the rounds associated with this game, and it was that the Vuck were on track for the worst start to a season in the first 12 games. They conceded 30 goals, but the worst was 32. So the Vuck really are they are. We've sort of said before how they're having obviously a horrible season, but they really are sort of skating very close to being sort of one of the worst teams in A-League history at this point. Obviously, just objectively at this point, I think they have had some bright moments, and I guess one of the bright moments so far, not just from this game, but in their other game, has been Callum McManaman as well. I think he's obviously been a real bright spark for them. But if there was one thing that stood out for me in the match against Wellington, it was just that he's trying way too hard. It's almost like he knows he's the only good player in that team, and that he feels this huge weight of responsibility that he's got to like score the goals, create every sort of good moment for the Vuck. And I think that can only be a bad thing, I think, for him and for Victory, because like when players have that sense of responsibility on their back and they're trying to create anything and everything for their team, then I think inevitably it makes them worse, and it makes the team worse too.
Yeah, only if they're not backed up though, because like if he could inspire the rest of the team, fantastic. But it's just not happening, or didn't happen at that point.
Yeah, mate. Moving on though, Sydney played Perth hosted Sydney, I should say, in the other game that was midweek. This one wasn't nearly as exciting though. No. Goals from two A-League veterans, Bruno Fornaroli and Bobo, meant the points were shared. Bobo's third goal of the season means he's already Sydney's joint top scorer after only 3 starts and 4 sub appearances, which is a pretty damning indictment on Barbarosas and Trent Buhagiar. I reckon Barbarosas has already missed 3 absolute sitters, let alone scored 3. So, it's pretty disappointing for Sydney, and I guess we saw a little bit more of that today, which we'll get to in a second. Mate, you got anything else you want to add about this one, or you were equally uninspired by it?
I was equally uninspired, but it just shows how much they're missing Adam Lafonda, really. Like
100%.
Yeah, they're not really. If Bobo's already joint top, they're not creating anything. Like they really needed that special marquee touch, really.
And not just that. I mean, we've also seen with Sydney that sort of finally there's this gloss that has rubbed off of Andrew Redmayne. Like, I mean, you and I have definitely seen Andrew Redmayne be absolute garbage for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden he was the best goalkeeper in the A-League. And I think you and I were still wondering every week when he was good at Sydney, going, are we looking at the same goalkeeper here? Because this guy was trash for years. Every game he had one error in him, which would mean he would concede, right? He would make a bunch of good saves and then make an error. And it seems like he's back to that sort of form now, which I mean, in some ways it's good to know that he is human, because he's looked really good for the last probably 18 months. But for him to sort of revert back to type, I guess, is still a little bit disappointing, I guess, for Sydney.
I felt he's always been very motivated by like the confidence. Like if he's not confident, he doesn't turn up. And I don't think back in those days you're talking about when the Terrace was chanting for Tando Balafi every week, that probably did him much good. So it might just be confidence for him. I don't know.
Yeah, mate, I reckon that's a very good shout. So we'll keep moving, though, onto your beloved Melbourne City. They hosted Western Sydney Wanderers on Friday evening in Melbourne at Amy Park. City continued their good form with a 4-1 home win. Wanderers actually took the lead, though, through Bernie Abini, but it was just the entree before the Craig Noon show started. 2 goals and an assist for the Englishman in surely what is one of his best performances for City in his 1.5 seasons at the club. City are really starting to come into form, though. They're playing great football and it's effective, though, which often that's been a struggle for A-League teams, is to kind of put those two things together. But, mate, I'm going to throw this out early. Big call. I reckon you might be for it. Is the front 3 of J-Mac, Naboo and Noon got the potential to be one of the best front 3s in A-League history?
I think they do, and I think they do if they keep performing to this level. Because like we ourselves, like I mean, 6 undefeated now, but we were looking very shaky for a few weeks.
Whoa! It's not just 6 undefeated; it's 6 wins. Come on, mate.
Yeah. 6 wins in it. Yeah. Keeping the lid on. Keeping the lid on. But,
Mustn't get too excited. Mustn't get too
no,
excited.
no. I've been
Have you got a
conditioned that
paper?
way.
Have you got a paper bag handy so you can hyperventilate? Or
I should do. I should do. But I think they absolutely do. I mean, it reminds me of the old days with the Navio, Moi, Fornaroli. Like it was just they're exciting to watch, and you don't just think we're going to get a goal here. We're going to get goals. I mean, I think 4-1, it could have been way more, and it nearly was.
Yeah, mate, 100%, 100%, and it's a good comparison because I guess that trio of Navio, Fornaroli, and Moy were just incredible to watch. And like I agree, like that team, you always knew that they were going to score. The problem with that team was though that you just weren't sure about how many more they would concede as well. Exactly, I think Redmayne was still the. Oh no, that was Sorensen's first year. But anyway. The problem was that they still hadn't really sorted out the defense at that point, though. So it was still sort of nervy times, and even though I guess the problem always was that if City were held scoreless, you suspected that the other team still would score, and it would just be strangled out of the game.
Yeah, well, that was Van Skip's way too, though. That was the way we used to play. Like if you concede 3, just make sure you score 4. Like. But yeah, I definitely do think the team is all round better, and I think they definitely do have the potential to be the best trio if we go on to win something.
Yeah, mate. I've got to say, I think there is a particular weak link in this squad, though. Arguably, it's probably right back. What are your thoughts on Nathan Atkinson?
I think he's good. I think he's going to come better. I don't think he's well, obviously he's not reaching the end of his career. He's at his start. I think he's only going to improve. I'm not too sure, honestly, but I think he's done okay.
Do you think he's going to continue to develop, I guess, into like a really quality A-League level, or even succeed from the A-League and go over to Europe, or do you think we're sort of seeing like peak Atkinson at the moment?
No, I think he'll get better. I don't think we'll hold on to him for too many more seasons, but. Yeah, well, guess what are your thoughts? Do you not rate Aka?
I actually do, and I really enjoyed watching him from when he burst on the scene. Who was the coach last year? Was it? It wasn't. It was. That's right. Monbear was there for 2 seasons or 1 season.
No,
I forget.
Just last season. Yeah, Joyce before that.
Right. That's right. And because Atkinson burst on the scene under Joyce. And you could tell he wanted to give him a run, but being a young player playing in defence, he was a little bit uncertain. I think at the time, Richie DeLapp was there too. And so,
funnily enough.
Yeah. But Atkinson, he's got a huge engine and he's able to get up and down that right-hand side, and he plays real fire in his belly, which I really enjoy.
Yeah.
And I guess like that is the biggest problem with Atkinson, though, is that fire in his belly sometimes can sort of spill over, and sometimes he just loses a little bit of control of his emotions, and sometimes means that he's susceptible to making a bad decision or a rash tackle or just sort of losing himself in the moment, I think, a little bit. And you'd hope that being a young man, that maybe that's just because he's young and he's sort of learning his way, but you would hope that in the next year or so he sort of starts to outgrow that a little bit and starts to get a little bit more experience. But by the same token, that sort of emotion and drive and passion, that also is what makes him a good footballer too. So you kind of hope that he doesn't lose that at the same time. So
exactly that.
But yeah, I really like him, and I hope that he does continue to develop, because I think he could be. I'm not sure if he will ever be like an international level fullback, but I think you could see him maybe rise to. And then this is probably a huge shout that I think he's got a ceiling just as high as someone like Ryan Grant, where he could be a really good quality A-League fullback. I don't think anyone is expecting that Ryan Grant probably could have been a world beater in Europe or could have been playing Champions League or anything like that. But I think both players have. I think Atkinson's got the ability to turn out and play 200 games in the A-League and be a really top quality fullback.
Yeah, of course. And like, not to go over old ground, but do you think you and me saw Redmayne being in the Socceroos ever? Strange things have happened.
100% no. So you're right.
Yeah.
I think Atkinson's got a better potential than Redmayne does as a goalkeeper. But I feel like that's not the. I don't think that's quite the compliment that it's probably that some people might think that it is. What else? So from this game as well, you had sort of that. There would seem to be really spicy moments on the sideline between Kisnorbo and Craig Robinson. Mate, I did see a couple of people on Twitter throwing out that they thought Craig Robinson would win a fight between these two, given that, like, I think they've got a little bit of history as players as well, because Kisnorbo was the Leicester City captain for a period. I think Craig Robinson was at Norwich as well. So, look, who do you think would win in a fight between these two?
Is that a question? Have you seen Kisnorbo? He would beat all the managers in the fight in a ring, all of them together, without a shadow of a doubt.
Mate, good to see that your loyalties are unbreakable. Craig Robinson, he does have this sort of scowl sort of look about him, though. I still reckon he'd if it was if you had to rank the A-League managers in terms of who looks like they would win in a fight, I reckon Robinson's definitely up there. But Kisnorbo, he does look like a mean bastard. I reckon he would have been up there alongside sort of Muscat back in the days of defenders that you just didn't want to play against, because I reckon he would have kicked plenty of. I reckon he would have kicked plenty of players in his day.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
All right. Sal has thrown into the comments that there's some WWE chat coming inbound to the pod, and look, maybe that's another question: is who would win in a wrestling match between Craig Robinson and Kisnorbo? Because I think that's now we're talking different formats though.
Yeah, I could see Robinson playing dirty, grabbing a chair while Paddy's not looking, trying to get the referee up.
100%. I reckon Craig Robinson tries like the chokeslam through the table, and I reckon it's game on from there. Out come the chairs and the tables and the ladders and the thumbtacks. I reckon Craig Robinson would be all about the thumbtacks.
Yeah, he's definitely the bad guy. He's definitely the bad guy in the WWE.
Yeah, mate. All right, back to some football though. One thing before we move on. Wanted to mention about Mark Natter, who was the centre back for Western Sydney. I thought he actually looked pretty good in this game, and I've got to laugh because in my notes I made reference to Jonathan Aspro, Aspro for short, and how he reminded me a little bit of him in that he broke through at Western Sydney as a centre back teenager, and he looked good, but. Aspro never really kicked on, but do you think Natter is going to kick on? Do you think there's a really talented footballer there, or what do you think?
Maybe, unless Naboot breaks through him first. I'm not sure. But I think he's definitely got potential.
Well, that's a good point, because he did go off injured. I don't think he ever came back on, did he?
No, it was a substitution straight after he came off. Yeah.
Which I've got to say, I thought that was a little bit strange, because for me, I thought Natter just looked like he'd been winded, and maybe an 18-year-old getting winded means that they go off. But to me, it looked like he got clattered, but not quite. I guess the injury that some people also.
I'm not sure. Maybe it was precautionary. I'm not sure, but he got hit pretty hard.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird, but anyway, maybe they were just giving a little bit of protection, noting that I think at that point they were already down.
Well, that led right into the disallowed goal, that bump.
Yeah, so at that point it was already 3-0, I think. So, 3-1. So the game had kind of already gone by that point, hadn't it?
Yeah.
All righty, still plenty more football for us to cover, though. As I mentioned at the top, Brisbane and the Wanderers was already postponed midweek due to the big wet up in Queensland, which leads us to Saturday. 2 games played on Saturday and Sunday. I did feel a little bit robbed that we were robbed of a triple header Saturday. I love triple headers on a Saturday, and especially on a non-international break weekend where you go from triple header A-League into like potentially triple Premier League as well. Just injected
Remember the
into
glory
my veins.
days, the Fox Sports with the coverage. Oh,
well, I never had
straight
Fox
into
Sports,
match day. Missed out.
but now that I have Optus, I love
Way
it.
better.
So yeah,
it was a good bit of nostalgia.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people for a lot of people that was the glory days of the A-League though.
Yeah.
Speaking of the glory days being back, though, Central Coast top of the table playing against Melbourne Victory, bottom of the table, and this was a strange game, I've got to admit, because Central Coast, it did seem like they never really got out of the blocks, though. 1 goal apiece, one for Central Coast, one for Melbourne Victory. I think Melbourne Victory scored first, actually. So
they did.
If anything, they were probably first of all, they were leading, which I don't think has happened very often for the Victory this season. But for them not to, yeah, that too. They would be disappointed, obviously, that they didn't hold on to the win, but they still managed to get a point after taking the lead early after 20 minutes. This was one of 2 matches this weekend where a quick free kick led to a goal.
Yes.
Why haven't we seen this before? Why has this just only started to become a thing?
I'm not sure. I thought with Craig Noons, I thought he's just like a Liverpool lad taking his tips off Origi.
Yeah, it's like I know that we've got plenty of Liverpool listeners, and with Jesse and Colby being Liverpool fans as well. That if you say but free kick taken quickly, Brimar. That it doesn't have the quite the same ring to it as kind of taken quickly Origi, but I know that they'll appreciate the shout out nonetheless. And it was a good goal from McManaman as well. I mentioned earlier about how he's been good, but obviously still I guess the risk being that he tries too hard.
What did you think of his celebration, the cupping the ears? That was a bit odd.
Well, what are they trying to say? That like
I'm not sure.
That, like he has been Melbourne Victory's only good player, and that he hears people saying that.
Maybe.
Is he saying that like he hears the Central Coast applause for him? Is that what he's saying? I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure. It seemed odd. It seemed very odd to and that early in the game too. But yeah, I wonder if the game would have gone differently if they didn't score first. But yeah, it was definitely a weird game. It didn't feel like a bottom versus top clash, did it?
No, 100% no. And like, even though Central Coast pressed really hard in the second half for another goal, a winner, it never really felt like it was coming though, because I think this game felt like it was worth far more for Victory than it did for Central Coast, which meant the game had a really strange feel to it. Although Orenya's goal past Acton, I thought that was a really, really nice goal. Got to be mentioned. Mate, anything else you want? Oh, actually, sorry, there was a few things about this game that I wanted to mention. Almost bloody skipped over all my notes. Harps absolutely lost his shit on the coverage about Danny De Silva doing like a Maradona spin, and he did the same after Berenguer did one as well in the City game the day before. So there were two Maradona spins or pirouettes or Zidane spins, whatever you want to call them, in 2 days, and so they seem to be like the thing as far as Fox Sports are concerned right now. But I've got to say, mate, like there's a bit of an age gap between you and I, but like I grew up calling them Maradona spins. What do you call them?
I'm much the same. I know it as a Maradona spin. But speedy, I don't think is a good barometer for what most people think or say. So it must be said.
Yeah, because I think like some people call him like just a pirouette, but then I remember, I think he started like he went on like this whole sort of Zidane thing for about 5 minutes, which was, it was real sort of speedy areas. And I guess it got me thinking, like, I know I call him the Maradona spin, or I used to call him that, but I still, when I think of that move, I still think more of Zidane than I do of Maradona though, which I don't know. Anyway, strange how that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
There was a couple other things though. There was the Matt Simon moment of the match, mate. I know you liked this one as well, so I'll let you explain this one.
Are we talking about the near goal?
Yes.
Yeah, any other day, that was him all over. He loves scoring against the Victory. I mean, even when they were 12th and Victory were close to the top of the table, he loves getting these in. And I don't know what mistake it was that led to it, but it was total
I think it
shambles
was
from
a.
Victory.
So I think it was a Dharma Traore played a really underdone back pass back to
That's
Matt
right.
Acton. And Matt Simon was onto it in a flash, meaning that he basically turned an undercooked pass into a 50-50 between him and Matt Acton. And like I thought this was real Matt Simon areas because through sheer weight of personality and effort, he's turned a 50-50 into a goal scoring opportunity. And then through sort of through a bizarre way that the ball lands, he then the ball then spins and takes like this weird bounce.
Yeah.
And then the ball spins away from both the goalkeeper, the defender, the goal, and Matt Simon, meaning that the ball just kind of trickles out and everyone's really excited, but nothing really happens in the end. But it was really violent and exciting in the meantime. And I feel like that is Matt Simon. Like he's exciting, he's all effort, he chases a lot of shit down, he's violent, and then sometimes nothing happens.
He's love him. I love him. Unless he's playing against you, he's the best person to watch play A-League football.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? The other thing I wanted to mention though was about Alireza Fagani, who was the referee for this one, the famous Iranian who's come out in the last couple of years, who I actually think he's a fantastic referee, but excuse me, he's also got just this kind of take no bullshit approach to refereeing, and 100%. And in this game, there was a really good example of how he also doesn't take any shit, and you sense that sometimes there's a little bit of fear almost from the players, and they start to treat him very differently to some of the other referees in the competition who can almost be a little bit bullied and intimidated by some of the players. And in this one, so it was just after Ryan Shotton came on, and I think it was 1-1 at this point. Ryan Shotton gets booked within a minute or so of coming on for time wasting, delaying a free kick. And then a few minutes later, so he's already given Ryan Shotton a yellow card after just coming on. A few minutes later, Matt Acton's taking a goal kick. He's got the ball in his hands, and Alireza decides to give an indirect free kick against Matt Acton for holding onto the ball for too long. And look, fair play, because Matt Acton did hold onto the ball for way too long, but it's the kind of thing that, like that, along with foul throws, we just never see it actually getting booked.
No.
In whether it's the A-League or the Premier League or whatever, and it was just like, I think everyone loved it. First of all, because one, the referee had the cojones to actually call it out. Two, it was a moment that we don't see very often, which is like an indirect free kick in the penalty area. And that's always sort of just a weird dynamic because no one practices for this, so no one really knows what to do.
Can you imagine if that was a winner? Like, that would have been a meltdown. That would have been fantastic.
It would have been fantastic, but I still don't think it would have topped Dylan Ruiz Diaz, I think, scoring that winner last season for Central Coast. I think it was at home in injury time. That was peak Central Coast Mariners and victory moment though for me. But yeah, that was a fantastic moment. And look, I hope that sort of that inspires some of the other A-League referees, I guess, to kind of take no shit either, because like referees do have tools at their disposal in order to keep the game under control. And sometimes I do watch games and you see players just crowding referees and you think, why don't you just book someone, and all of a sudden all of these players, they might back off a little bit, and it might sort of unfuck a little bit of that situation for the referees. And it's a little bit disappointing, I think, sometimes that referees don't use all the tools at their disposal a little bit.
Well, he reminds me of one of those teachers that just don't take rubbish, and you do treat them differently. You mentioned earlier, like it kind of changed how the players reacted to things. I feel like if you manage to command more respect, whether that's out of fear, whether that's out of anything else, that's probably good for keeping control of the game.
Yeah, mate. And I think the less people are focusing on the less the players are focusing on the referee, and the more they're focusing on actually what they're meant to be doing, I think the
Yeah.
better for everyone. But it is. But look, mate, do you have anything else you want to talk about this game?
No, nothing in particular.
All right. Next up, we had Perth versus Newcastle. This was a really strange game. I would say it wasn't a game of two halves. I would say it was a game of 1/3 and 2/3. Um, in the sense that Perth looked like they were just cruising. They scored in the 17th minute with Wiley veterans Castro, Fornaroli, and Malik combining to put it on a plate for young Kieran Bramwell, who was playing up front for Perth, to score his first A-League goal. Then just 5 minutes later, Darryl Latchman tucked away a header from a corner from Kilkenny. Perth cruising 2-0 after 25 minutes, thinking, oh, yeah, Newcastle can't really get into this. And then really out of absolutely nowhere, Jonathan Aspro, who we were just talking about, he gets a second yellow, two pretty average yellow cards, and arguably both. But exactly, arguably both were avoidable, but also both were totally, you couldn't argue against them. And Aspro did, he just basically walked off. But particularly the second yellow card was pretty comical in how it sort of played out. You had Castro just sort of mazing his way through the Newcastle midfield, and then he sort of nonchalantly laid the ball off to one of the Perth defenders, and absolutely nobody moved towards it. And out of nowhere, I think it was Nazarene. I think he picked up the ball and dribbled past one Perth defender, and then was absolutely scythed down by Aspro on the edge of the area, and obviously it was a yellow card because I think he only had one more defender to go past, but and I think it was a second yellow, not a straight red. But
it was.
Yeah, so all of a sudden Perth are up 2-0, but they're also down to 10 men, and it made for a really interesting, I wouldn't say second half, but final 2/3 of the match, because you had Newcastle, who haven't really shown to be a particularly good footballing team this season, playing against 10 men, but kind of struggling to score still. And although Roy Donovan did get one back, it was a really strange game to watch, and it didn't really feel like it had the energy of a game where Perth were in with a shot of winning it. Did you get the same impression?
Well, what you said earlier, how they were cruising, they kind of went on cruise control. They couldn't get back into it, really. I felt like they did their job at the start and they just turned off and couldn't get back into it. Like, they couldn't get back to that intensity. They thought their job was done and they packed up and went home, really.
Well, on the topic of Perth, I actually think Perth did a pretty good job of holding on, but I felt like Newcastle kind of struggled to get out of about maybe second or third gear and try to sort of run over the top of Perth. And maybe if this had been a Newcastle home game, I think they would have had a far better chance at actually getting the win. And maybe that sounds obvious, but I think a home crowd getting behind Newcastle, I think, might have been the difference there. But alas, it wasn't to be. Mentioned about Perth though, mate, and I reckon Castro's ability to kind of just dribble the ball and hold on to it for great periods and act as a bit of an outlet. I thought he was the difference maker for Perth, and I think without Castro, I don't think Perth are able to hold on and hold on to that one goal lead that they had. I'm not sure about you, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier the pass that it was ignored. Like, I bet he does wish he was still back on that caravan. He's the only one putting anything out there. Like, something's got to give soon, surely.
Yeah, I guess I think there's still some injuries at Perth as well. Like we've said before on previous pods, I think it was Damo that said last week about how good the front line is for Perth, and I guess Jason Guerrier, he was good for Perth, playing on the right hand side. Excuse me. But still, like there's still goals to be conceded by this Perth team, and although they sat very deep and I guess maybe it sort of helped that they already had a 2-goal cushion. It was still a really strange game, and I thought Perth. I think against a better team, I don't think they would have held on in this game. Anything else, mate, that you wanted to mention about this one?
I think you summed it up pretty well.
Cool. On to Sunday's football, though. Some of this I've seen, some of it I haven't. The first up one was Wellington playing back again at Wynn Stadium, again in that great Wollongong Wolves inspired kit with the Wellington topography on the front as well. Sorry, I'm just regressing back into some kit chat.
Well, they lost the magic of the kit, though. They lost the magic.
This is true. Does that mean that they revert back to yellow and black now that they've lost a game?
I think they do. I think this was Wollongong Appreciation Month, and I don't think they play again in the next 3 days. So I can't. I think that's it. I think it's a special Wollongong kit that was only for March.
Well, I guess that's a real shame then that's the final game that they'll play in it, because I think this has been an overwhelming success, and I wouldn't be surprised that I don't think anyone's expecting the Wolves to enter the A-League in sort of the next season or two, but I wouldn't be surprised if Wellington do play more games next season when things sort of return to post-COVID normality. I wouldn't be surprised if Wellington do actually play more games in Wollongong, maybe the odd home game or once or twice a season to reconnect with that fan base that they've developed there over the last few months, because that's been one of the major off-field success stories of this year, in a season that hasn't really had many off-field success stories.
They've done so well with it too, connecting to the communities, like adopting Wollongong, like they're getting the support of some Wolves fans. Like, it's been terrific.
Exactly, and also doing the NPL doubleheaders as well. I think that's been a really great success as well. So, I think Wellington would be foolish, I guess, to sort of disregard some of those links and not give themselves, I guess, a broader or a second home in Australia now that they've done that for this season. But really strange game. Like, I watched the first half of this live, and you hear some games referred to as an arm wrestle, and this for me was an arm wrestle, not in a fun way.
No. When halftime rolled around, I thought, I don't know what I've seen really. I've presumably watched 45 minutes of football, but I don't know if I've seen anything of note. Like, that was really the summary of the first half.
If there was one thing that was sort of going in both teams' favour, it's that both teams were both really good defensively and very disciplined. Because apart from that, there weren't many good things to pull out from this game in the first half. But mate, the second half though, I'm assuming you saw the second half of this live.
I did see the second half. Yeah.
What did you think about the second half though?
It was really kind of the same type of vibe, but obviously we do have the goal there from Jeannot. That was quite,
my boy.
Yeah. And I miss him. But it was. I guess it was a good goal, but it was a tap in from a horrible mistake. I don't know how much credit you can actually give your boy there, but it's a goal. A goal is a goal nonetheless. Yeah.
Exactly. Look, it did mean that MacArthur ended up taking away a 1-0 win. Was it deserved win in the end, or did Wellington create a bunch of chances, or was it a bit more of the first half just with a goal thrown in?
It was a lot more of the first half. I don't think you could be too upset with losing 1-0. I don't think it's a fair reflection of the game. So would if Wellington scored. So would if it was a 0-0 draw, which I think you told me at the time. You think it could have that written all over it.
It did have real strong 0-0 vibes to me, but alas, that's not the way it panned out. If there was one thing I did find interesting about this game, it was I don't know if this has been done before, but Ante Milicic utilised Tommy Orr as a left back. We've seen before with Mark Rudin converting Connor Payne into a left back and into a left wing back, and that's been really effective. Do you think Tommy Orr could turn out to be just as effective as a left wing back?
I'm sure he could be. I mean, he's got the past credentials, I guess. He hasn't lived up to his tag yet. but I'm sure he could surprise us all.
Oof.
Yeah,
Big
maybe,
call there. Big call.
maybe not.
Mate, another question I've got for you is regarding Danny Jonru. So Danny Jonru came through, I guess, roughly at the same time. I think they might be a year or two apart, but Metcalf for City. Him and Danny Jonru came through roughly the same time, and I think City really needed to pick one because even if you're playing a midfield three, I think playing two very young players, I think, isn't necessarily a recipe for success unless they're both just elite, which I think they're both good at this point, but neither of them are elite and need to be played alongside sort of a more extreme experienced partner. But are you happy with City picking Metcalf and allowing Genre to move on?
Yeah, I'm happy. You got to take a punt though, because you can't have young guys on the bench. I mean, we've loaned out Najarine, but you can't keep somebody there if you have no intention of playing them or you don't have the space to play them. It's like a good problem to have, I suppose. But at the end of the day, the coaches had to make a choice between who they're keeping, who's in their plans, who's not in their plans. And I assume Paddy knows or has a good had a good idea of who he'd prefer or who would be in the plans going forward.
And I guess like it's probably a disappointing thing that City had two players come through pretty much in the exact same position at the same time, who both look like really good prospects. Because like I think if we've seen this season, like Denis Genre, he's the creative outlet for or the more advanced element for MacArthur, and I think he's had a really good season so far. I think he's going to have, assuming the Olympics goes ahead, I think he's going to be really good for the Olyroos.
Yeah,
so
assuming.
Really excited to see. Yeah, I know, right? I don't know how positive or sort of just like ludicrous an idea that is that the Olympics will go ahead, but I guess we'll see.
I know. I feel what's worse is being strung along so long. How far can you go before you say, okay, everyone, we can't do it? Like, are we going to be in December before they tell us 2021 isn't happening?
Well, actually, that's a good point because I think it was a few weeks ago that they were talking about the Tokyo Olympics being sort of international fan free. So like no one's going to be allowed to go there. It's just going to be almost exclusively a televised event only. And it's kind of like, well, what the fuck's the point of that then?
Yeah. But, I mean, I got to say, I mean, I guess I'm a football fan, not an athletics fan, but I've never really got the whole appeal of the Olympics really anyway, apart from the football finals or the 100-meter sprint or the 100-meter freestyle. Overblown, in my opinion. Overblown.
Mate. Here. I'm all about that because I remember like growing up in New South Wales during the I think I was like 13 or something when the Sydney Olympics were on, and everyone was frothing for it, and I didn't get it. I don't understand, like all these people that normally wouldn't give a shit about athletics all of a sudden they're skeet shooting aficionados or gymnastics aficionados, and I just don't get it.
No,
and the Olympics. And the Olympics sort of aspires to have like some some good energy, I guess, about it. But I think everyone sees through that pretty transparent veneer.
They get all the funding. They get all the funding. I'll tell you that.
Yep. Alrighty, mate. Yeah, have anything else from this match? I think we've already covered almost all of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fair result. It was a bit of a nothing game, but good win for MacArthur. Good little tap in for Genre.
Yeah. All right, to wrap things up, we had the final match, which was Adelaide hosting Sydney. Another really closely fought match, this one, but I think the game was played at a higher intensity than the earlier game between Wollongong and the McBulls. This time, Adelaide were too good after going ahead via Craig Goodwin from the spot after, quote, Sydney FC Twitter, a dubious penalty. Was that a dubious penalty to you?
I think it could be a dubious penalty, but I don't think it's an official account's place to call it a dubious penalty. I think you may disagree with it, but I don't think it's that cut and dry. Like, I think it's like you could award it, you could not award it. But yeah, the bit of a Twitter meltdown there.
Michael, if there is one thing that you have demonstrated consistently on this podcast, it's that you are a master diplomat. You can find the diplomatic road in any argument. I mean, even in something like this, where, like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that was a pretty cast iron penalty. I know lots of Sydney fans seem to think that Yengi didn't get touched by Bratton. I even saw some people say that Yengi fouled Bratton, which made me wonder if they were actually watching what had happened on the game. But look, maybe that was just me.
Well, I don't think I was being too diplomatic there. I mean, I didn't really. Watching it back, I don't even really know what happened there. To me, it looked like they both went down pretty easily, and no matter who fouled who. I agree with you. It's pretty clear who fouled who. But yeah, I mean, a very weird one and a very weird reaction.
I know. And look, so Sal in the comments has just said that Michael would make a great politician, which
not a great time to be a politician, mate.
No, and I was just thinking, Sal, I'm not sure if that's meant to be a compliment or if you're saying that like you really don't like Mike, or what you're trying to say. But interesting comment nonetheless. What else though? This game, it seems like I've got to admit, I only caught the second half of this, and there's been a really, really strong response to this match from Sydney fans online. I think there were a couple of incidences that I possibly missed, which hopefully you can fill me in on this one, Mikey, with there was Javi Lopez. He went off injured, and I think he blamed Bratton for that, saying like he broke my knee.
Yes.
Was there more to that?
Well, there was it was probably a bad challenge by Bratton, but yeah, apparently, I mean, I didn't see the footage, but Fox Sports was saying in the commentary in the second half that he apparently approached Bratton in the tunnel and said, "You broke my knee," and Bratton's just pleading, "Well, I was going for the ball, like shit happens." Like, yeah, it was bizarre. You broke my knee. Okay.
Interesting take. And the other one was like Bobo. I think he had a crack at is it Jordan Elsey? Did he get a yellow card? Did he get a red card for kicking out at Elsey?
Oh yes, yeah. I remember. I momentarily forgot that one. Yeah, he kicked out after he lost the ball, and the referee didn't give a card. But because the referee didn't give a card, the VAR can't award a yellow card. It can only rule for a red card. So the problem there was if there wasn't enough for a red card, the VAR couldn't do anything. But that definitely deserved at least a yellow.
Fair enough. So in your opinion, it should have been a yellow, but definitely not a red.
I mean, it could have been a red if it was a different part of the pitch or a different point in the match, maybe. But I mean, there was no legitimate play for the ball there. It was a foul. It should have been, yeah. But the VAR couldn't do anything for that, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So like we've had the penalty, which City fans are saying is a bit of a dubious penalty. You've had a couple of incidences that Adelaide fans would probably say where Sydney got a pretty good rub of green there, but in your opinion, is that a pretty reasonable result then that Adelaide end up taking this one out 1-0?
Absolutely. I don't think they were gifted anything there. I think that was a very fair result. Penalty, you agree with it or not, I think they deserved at least a goal from, what I saw. And I don't know if it was just because of the game before it, but it seemed a lot more exciting, this one.
Fair enough. I guess the closest Sydney went, at least the football that I saw in this game, was I think it was Patrick Wood went very close right at the end with a header. Gorsey made a really, really good save for Adelaide, which arguably is one of those real match-saving saves. And yeah, it ended up staying 1-0 for Adelaide, which great result for them. It's their 6th straight win for Adelaide, first time that's happened for 15 years. And it's strange. So it means that we've had, so I think both City and Adelaide have both won 6 on the trot. So
that doesn't seem right, does it?
I know, like it's and neither are top either. So
no.
again, really strange in how sort of the A-League works sometimes, but exciting nonetheless that you've got the two form teams by far in Adelaide and City, and neither of them are top. So plenty more great A-League football on the way, I guess. A couple other things that stood out for me on this one. You had this gem from the Fox commentary team with Ben Homer asking Robbie Slater, what's the best avenue to goal? And Robbie going forward, and then laughing smugly to himself. I actually feel like we're going to need to start a new segment on More Than a Game where we point out like the stupidest piece of commentary each week, because man, there is plenty of material
early,
for that.
I'll tell you what. All of Peacock's weird analogies about pedestrian things.
Hey,
yeah.
I don't mind Peacock. Like he says some strange things sometimes, but he's, I don't know, he's just not a douche like some of the others.
Oh no, I love Adam. Yeah.
What else? Look, I think we need to finish on one thing, and it was Sydney Twitter losing the plot after the match. I posted something which I don't think was particularly inflammatory on social media, and someone retweeted it saying that the account this account is run by 12-year-olds, which I mean. That was just confusing because I don't think I'm 12.
Very impressed if you were. Like, that'd be built up a very good audience at 12.
Unless I was like born on the 29th of February and I was actually
yes.
Oh, hang on, that'd make me close. That'd make me almost 28. 32, yeah. Testing my 4 times tables. What else? And then finally, though, we did have, I guess, the other side of the coin, which was Jordan Renouf saying, even if it wasn't a foul, it's all come out in the wash. 2 red cards and a double yellow not given against FC kind of make the pen just desserts. Definite contact, but was exaggerated. Yankee needs to be careful or he will wind up with a contract offer from the Knicks. Ooh.
Wow.
Spicy there from him, but I think that for me actually summed up the game pretty well too. About that Sydney, well, maybe they kind of got what they had coming anyway. That pretty much wraps things up for the A-League, but I did want to quickly touch upon A-League Survivor tipping before we wrap things up. And look, after, I think last week we had a bit of a false start with Sal dropped out after he tipped Perth, who lost to the Wanderers. And then you had HSN and Matt Olsen, who both picked Sydney in the postponed Big Wet, or the big wet blue, or the wet big blue, whatever you want to call it. But ultimately, they automatically progressed into the next round. Matt and HSN, I asked them both to pick to pick a team in each of the 5 matches, thinking that is certain to give us a result, but it hasn't. So sorry, Sal, you just missed out. I can see you in the comments still, but it's finished 2-2 after Sydney lost in the final game, which meant that both players had 2 wins each. Next week we're going to go again with HSN and Matt Olsen going head to head again in A-League Survivor tipping. And I think the 3rd final basically that we're having. At this rate, I think we're both going to have. Or they're both going to have castaway style Tom Hanks beards, and they're both going to be unshaven and unshowered because this, I've got to say, this competition is going on far longer than I expected. But look, great podcast again. Really appreciated you having you coming on the pod. Mikey, has been great to be
thank you.
graced by your presence. I hope you listen back on this and you're proud of everything you said on here, because it's been really great having you on the pod. But until next week, we're going to be having plenty more presence on the socials this week. And of course, there'll be another podcast next weekend where we're talking more A-League, Premier League, and of course, everything else in between and all over the world too. So be sure to join in then. But until then, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and everywhere else. Particularly though, for those who listen to the podcast edition, we are on YouTube, so please feel free to jump on, hit subscribe, and follow us. And hopefully you can join in whenever we're doing one of the live streams, so you can join in and comment along with us as we're recording, as you hear me sometimes referring to Sal on the live stream. But until next week, enjoy the football.